In all my years of making art on the internet, posting art drama videos, and talking about art controversies on my sub 5 YouTube channel, I have seen many different forms of weird and disturbing art, problematic situations, and toxic drawings made to mock another artist or stir up an entire shitstorm of controversy in the art community. But never, ever have I seen something like what I'm about to show you. Take a look at this. I'm sure for most of you who haven't seen this image before, this looks like a rather normal drawing. A simple, cool, original character made by an artist with an interesting and rather harmless design, right? But when you start to look a little closer, something just doesn't seem right. Apparently, this is a school shooter original character. Yes, you heard that right. People are going out of their way to make original characters that are apparently school shooters. I was shocked myself when I stumbled on this thread on Twitter and also TikTok, and I'm like, are we really idolizing school shooters and basing off our character designs off of that? What is wrong with the internet?
I do not want 2016 Tumblr to come back, mainly because of the school shooter fan accounts that were so prevalent during that time. It's honestly been around for quite a long time, but I did remember in 2016 where there would be like, oh my gosh, I heart insert school shooter's name here, and they would give them flower crowns and Instagram filters calling them my sweet cute boy, he's so misunderstood. Y'all, that was so incredibly disturbing and also disrespectful towards the victims of these mass shootings. There were people making cutesy fan art of the Sandy Hook shooter. Like, did we completely forget? Like, there were edits of the Parkland shooter and people saying that he was too cute to go to prison. Like, even the Columbine shooters had fan accounts. And they were literal racists and Nazis, and people were literally calling them, oh my god, they were misunderstood, they were bullied. I just randomly remember that, and the internet scares me. This is why the internet really scares me.
Now, if you've somehow avoided problematic art all your life on the internet, first of all, congratulations. That's quite impressive. But for the rest of us who have somehow one way or another stumbled across internet controversies in the art community like this is just a regular Tuesday, just a little more unhinged and delusional, I guess. For context, according to the artist who made this OC, there is inherently nothing wrong in their original character. So therefore, no hate speech, negative comments, or derogatory remarks should be sent their way. So it has come to my attention that a few artists on the internet are now making original characters who are apparently school shooters and have backstories of being hated, called ugly, and all sorts of other insults, which resulted in them becoming the aforementioned personality. The personalities, designs, and backstories of most of these so-called school shooter OCs all seem pretty similar across different artists, despite each of these designs and characters being completely made by various different artists. One might even say they were copying each other characters' lore. The art community on the internet of course found this problematic and started typing out long threads wondering why someone will even want to make a school shooter OC and going out of their way to call out the artist who posted it. This is genuinely so ugly and nasty. I don't like insulting people's art, but this is an exception. This artist is just genuinely a disgusting person, and not a single bone in my body can pretend that their art is good. I actually despise it so bad. I don't know why people even make school shooter OCs. Like, yeah, let's romanticize and glorify murdering kids. That's surely not fucking crazy or anything. This makes me so uncomfortable. What the fuck are we doing? The entire quotes and comment section were filled with people either calling the artist out and wondering why they even had an OC based on such tragic events, or just leaving remarks on how the character was drawn and calling the art style ugly and extremely hideous. And I'm just genuinely sitting down here and wondering, why do you even have a school shooter OC? What even is the purpose of creating this character? Of all the different genres of character designs you could possibly have, you genuinely sat down and thought it was cute to make a school shooter OC? doesn't even make any sense to me. With all the things going on in the world right now and how this has become such a problem literal kids have to deal with every day, sadly even while they're just trying to go to school, why would you even want to make an original character that is basically uplifting this evil theme and trying to make it look cool? This type of character should not even exist at all. I can't find one single reason that somehow makes sense to have something with a theme based around this as an original character, but yet somehow this exists. Imagine you're just casually scrolling on your FYP, quietly minding your business, watching fancy Breaking Bad edits, or looking at fancy art all over your For You page, and all of a sudden you come across a character with a striking description that makes you pause for a second. Not just because it's confusing and the drawing kinda looks weird, but because it automatically triggers a traumatic response after reading the description of the character, especially for people who have sadly had to experience this one way or another. Apparently some artists started making these OCs with their entire identity revolving around the idea of them either wanting to be involved in a school shooting or actively participating in it. And to me, whichever way I try to look at it, it just sounds exactly as bad as you think it does. Now for some reason these characters are drawn and often described as being quiet, misunderstood, isolated individuals who are pushed too far by the people around them, and also mostly drawn as being ugly, fat, and often disgusting and grotesque in a funny sort of way, which apparently is supposed to be the joke we're supposed to laugh at or find funny or something, I don't know. Their backstory usually builds up to a breaking point where the character supposedly snaps, and this results in a horrific incident. Sometimes these artists argue that they only create these types of characters because they're only trying to explore dark themes based around the effects of bullying, loneliness, and mental health struggles they themselves have experienced personally, so they base their characters' resemblance and trauma on their real life or the lives of people who have been arrested as active shooters, which in all honesty sounds like an interesting way to tackle real-world societal issues. But I just feel drawing these characters and using this approach to talk about the subject or tackle this topic is kinda inappropriate and disrespectful to the victims of these events. People affected by this, especially younger people, are having to deal with past trauma and are still figuring themselves out. Passing drawings like these around and even turning it into a trend is just a weird thing to do for the most part. Some other artists started drawing their own versions, making fun of the original tweet, I believe, just to show how ridiculous it is. Some artists made a corny school shooter OC and people were making fun of them, and then another artist posted their school shooter OC and said she was cooler. Hey guys, this is my school shooter OC. His name is Phil. He almost shot up his school because he got bullied for being named Phil, except he never got to because he was just the victim of an FBI entrapment operation to push new gun legalizations, and they arrested him before he left his house. What are we even doing? Hey guys, if you want a cool school shooter OC, check out my OC. Someone even tried to make their own school shooter OC different and quote-unquote better by drawing them as a conventionally attractive man, since people were calling out the original drawing for being ugly and evil. And although the artist probably meant this as a joke, judging from their responses to other people in the comments, the amount of effort put into their character is rather alarming to say the least. I mean, look at all their details. Impeccable genetics, enjoys golfing and nothing else, doesn't have to worry about courting females as all his relationships have been decided for him, although many desire him. Prom king every year, glows with a divine light, acne fears him, has every friend that matters, only decided to borrow his father's gun because he was fed up with the increasing amount of pores infiltrating his learning environment. What? What does that even mean? So, poor people infiltrating his learning environment is apparently a problem that can only be solved by taking an automatic rifle and decorating the entire building with bullet holes? You need help, my guy. Law enforcement took 2 hours to enter the school, by which time he was already enjoying a cucumber sandwich. He was let off with a scolding from the judge. What is this backstory, man? What am I even reading right now? I just can't understand how people can genuinely come up with questionable things like this on the internet. Speaking about questionable things on the internet, if you enjoy videos like this talking about controversies, weird or disturbing situations in the art community on the internet, you should subscribe. I post weekly and talk about art, things happening in the art community, and other things of that nature. If that's something you find interesting, just hit that little subscribe button and join the family. This drawing of how every school shooter OC is drawn also started stacking up views, getting over 1 million views and counting, emphasizing how every single one of these OCs were drawn as incels with acne, glasses and braces, and were apparently always sad closeted gays. Why is their trauma also always getting beat by their dad or groups? Also, why are they always ginger or brunette? I see OCs like these and I start to understand why people chant break the pencil. Bonus points if the OC is perverted, his girlfriend is a popular mean girl, or his boyfriend is emo or punk. The plot takes place in a high school through 2006 to 2009 and isn't really about anything in particular. Maybe some romance and angst, but that's about it. I hate the ugly equals evil thing they do so much, especially since with the other factors making them closeted, struggling with SH, usually trauma, they're evidently trying to make the character deep while simultaneously going and feeding into the horn effect. It's so tiring. A lot of other people in the comments were all calling out this trope of creating characters with glasses and for some reason making them ugly and using that as an excuse for violence, while some other people found the character designs intriguing because apparently they were realistic and relatable to a certain demographic of people, I guess. Many other artists continued making fun of the trend, drawing their own versions of this character trope and calling the trend out for being basically pointless. They never have anything deeper to say about the inner psyches of school shooters either. Like, you could easily make the shit about the logical extreme conclusion of Western hegemonic masculinity producing these misanthropic white supremacist clowns, but that's too much work for you, I guess. What's Western hegemonic mean? I hate how these physical features, fat, acne, glasses and braces, are always portrayed as meaning the character is evil. Maybe I'm just biased because I hit all the marks for those physical features, but still, why do they always do the ugly equals evil and pretty equals good bullshit? That's a good one. There were so many other comments talking about the artist's characterization of their OC and how they failed to explore the causes and beliefs of people who were either criminals or somehow found themselves in situations where they ended up causing more harm than good, all because of how people treated them, looked at them and addressed their physical appearance. Some other people also tried to understand why people were even making characters like this, saying it was potentially okay to make a school shooter OC, but then if you did, you would have to handle the topic with respect and care, which is definitely true because I don't think this is a topic that deserves any less respect. People have sadly passed away from the shooters these artists are using as reference, and these always happen to be innocent people and even innocent children who had a bright future ahead of them, and just sitting back making an OC that literally lights schools up and not even trying to explore the character or use the character as a tribute and just basically making the character for fun is kinda disturbing. The only way I can see making a character like that work is if they are a school shooter for the sake of the narrative and that their actions are not glorified or made sympathetic. I mean, I feel like it will still be problematic regardless of the narrative, because the idea of creating that kind of character in itself is disturbing. They literally go out of their way to harm innocent kids. If the story is about the character regretting their actions, seeking redemption or forgiveness or any of the sort, then it could potentially work if it's portrayed well. And just like you said, none of their actions are glorified. I mean, there's nothing wrong about writing or drawing a problematic type of person. The issue is when those bad actions get romanticized. Exactly this, which seems to be the problem everyone has with the people making this type of original characters. They're so hard focused on making them as edgy and evil as possible instead of finding ways to speak about the topic without making it disturbing and trauma-inducing for people who have lived through things like this. I think the school shooter OC drama is really funny because can you imagine a better deterrent to school shooting than being depicted as a smelly, greasy, sweaty nerd kissing sloppy style with other edgy gross nerd boy shooters. Okay, what did I just read? What even makes this entire situation so ridiculous was after people started calling out the artist who made this OC and even commenting about the way the artist drew the character, they immediately took offense, telling everyone they didn't like people talking about their OC and had every right to feel uncomfortable about all the call out posts, which for a lot of people seemed like the artist just didn't understand the criticism people were giving for their character and was instead upset people were making fun of the art style and calling it ugly because of the face and all the goo they drew on him. Making a glorified edgelord school shooter OC and expecting people to not be weird or tell off color jokes is the whitest thing ever. I can make a shitty edgelord OC that shoots up schools, but I draw the line at mocking him for his body. This cannot be a real human, bro. This in fact is definitely not a real human, bro. I hope that school shooter OC passes quickly because I'm genuinely disgusted at the character. It's a vile creation, their teeth are rotted and I can almost smell them through the screen. Honestly, same. I don't even know why this trend started in the first place, and I have no idea where it even came from. And I definitely don't want to see characters like this on my timeline. There literally is no reason for creating characters like this. Some people started saying the artist was clearly rage baiting people into thinking they really had a school shooter OC and didn't really mean any of this. But my guy, this is the internet. Everyone is trying to be funny and edgy, and the fine line between being funny and being absolutely dead serious keeps getting blurred with each day that passes. Kids might start off making characters like this as a joke, but then get laughed at on the internet and it ends up pushing them to doing things they never even thought they were capable of, just because of the kinds of things they have been looking at and using as inspiration to draw their characters. I found this post on Toy House discussing the difference between school shooter OCs and other types of OCs that are considered problematic, and I think this comment answers it perfectly. Personally, I think it's in bad taste. I think the difference between this and just regular murderer OCs is that school shootings are such a specific, sensitive and very real topic. Some topics are just so sensitive that they should be handled with extreme care and aren't really something you should make a story or a character out of, unless you're a victim of that circumstance. To me, there is a difference between having an OC who just kills someone and having an OC who specifically killed several minors in a scenario which is based off of real events that actually happen to people and people spend large parts of their lives being afraid of. I'd frown upon it for the same reasons I'd frown upon someone having a rapist OC or a pedophile OC or a terrorist OC or something like that. It's just too sensitive. I think it's different if you're writing a story and in that story a school shooting occurs, but even then you have to approach the subject with extreme caution, and I also don't think that in that scenario the focus should be on the shooter. Instead, we should be more interested in humanizing and empathizing with the victims rather than the perpetrator. This comment perfectly sums up everything I feel about this archetype of characters. I believe deeply serious topics like this should not even be used as a form of humor or as a reference for generating ideas which end up being used to make edgy characters, especially when the artists making these characters are still young and impressionable and don't really understand the impact these type of characters have. Stories have always had characters who are violent, tragic, and occasionally have morally complex motives, which is not a new thing. The difference that makes one character understood and appreciated while another is deemed problematic is in how these elements are framed and portrayed. There's a huge gap between portraying something as disturbing, tragic, but yet making it funny and indirectly glorifying it, and then presenting it as something that adds depth and mystery to a character while trying to explore the character's mindset, motives, and what drove them to make those decisions, and also how they're consciously trying to redeem themselves and become a better person. I think artists making OCs will benefit more when exploring sensitive topics and complex characters by drawing them and telling the story in an empathetic way to the victims, rather than reshaping it into something that feels disrespectful and tone deaf. When the focus shifts away from the seriousness of the topic to how interesting or relatable the character feels, changes the entire meaning of the story, and the character starts becoming a reflection of how a subsection of the internet handles these types of topics by softening them, stylizing them, and making them easier to consume as memes or edgy humor. And honestly, I don't think any of us find that funny or mildly entertaining, but at this point all we can do is just hope for the best. Well, it looks like you made it to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like, share it with a friend who has never heard of the school shooter OCs, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. With all that being said, I'll see you pretty penguins in the next video. Bye.